What happens when you disrespect someone who served his country for 20 years? A decorated veteran faces shocking humiliation at a luxury jewelry store. The dignified black man says nothing, but his military training has already assessed the entire situation. Colonel Malcolm Carter had always been a man of precision and discipline. At 52, the retired Marine Corps officer had built a respected jewelry authentication empire based on the same values that guided his 20-year military career: integrity, excellence, and unwavering standards. His name commanded respect in luxury jewelry circles, yet Malcolm himself remained largely unknown. The Purple Heart and Bronze Star recipient preferred to operate behind the scenes, letting his impeccable reputation speak for itself. Even his executives rarely saw him in person, creating an almost mythical aura around the founder. Malcolm's military experience had honed his attention to detail, a skill that proved invaluable when he noticed discrepancies in his company's financial reports. Something was wrong at the downtown branch. Numbers weren't adding up, and inventory reports showed subtle inconsistencies that most would miss. His suspicions centered on Lisa Haynes, the downtown branch manager. For 5 years, she had projected efficiency and trustworthiness, quickly climbing the corporate ladder. But rumors had started circulating. Unexplained gaps in transactions, missing inventory, and a lifestyle seemingly beyond her salary. As a Marine, Malcolm had learned to trust his instincts. Tonight, studying the reports in his minimalist office overlooking the city, he decided to handle this mission personally. He would go undercover as a customer. The next morning, Malcolm dressed in deliberately casual clothes, clean but unassuming. No designer labels, nothing that screamed wealth or importance. His military-instilled habits were still visible in his perfect posture and measured movements, but he softened his commanding presence. The downtown branch occupied prime real estate, its displays of diamonds and sapphires gleaming under perfect lighting. As Malcolm entered, he scanned the room, calculating exits, personnel positions, and security cameras. Old habits died hard. Lisa Haynes stood behind the main counter. Tall, meticulously dressed, she radiated practiced confidence. Malcolm noted her sharp, assessing gaze as it flickered over him, lingering on his casual attire and dark skin. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Can I help you?" Lisa's tone was cool, professional, but lacked the warmth he'd observed her showing to the white customer who had just left. "Yes," Malcolm replied with measured calm. "I'm interested in seeing some of your higher-end pieces." Lisa's eyebrow arched slightly. "Our pieces start at $5,000. The exclusive collections are considerably more." The statement came with an evaluative glance, a subtle challenge. "That won't be a problem," Malcolm said, his voice steady. Lisa led him to a display, her movements efficient but lacking enthusiasm. "These might be suitable," she said, pointing to a selection that Malcolm immediately recognized as mid-range, not the premium pieces he'd requested. He maintained his composure, recognizing a familiar pattern of assumptions based on his appearance. "Actually," he said, "I was hoping to see the ruby collection that arrived last month." Lisa's expression shifted, a momentary flash of tension crossing her features. This was a collection Malcolm suspected had inventory discrepancies. "Those pieces are quite exclusive," she said, her voice tightening. "Perhaps something more appropriate for your budget?" Malcolm's military training kept his expression neutral, but inside, his suspicions deepened. "The rubies, please," Malcolm insisted calmly, his voice carrying the subtle authority that had commanded troops in combat zones. Lisa hesitated, then retrieved the collection. As she placed the stunning pieces before him, Malcolm noticed her hands trembling slightly. He examined the rubies with expert precision, immediately identifying inconsistencies with the inventory report. Several smaller stones had been switched with lower quality replacements, a change only an expert would notice. "Beautiful craftsmanship," he commented, "though I'm curious about the setting quality. It seems inconsistent with your brand standards." Lisa's composure cracked. "What do you know about our standards?" she snapped, her professional veneer slipping. "Are you one of those people who reads a few articles online and thinks they're an expert?" Malcolm's expression remained unchanged. "I know quality when I see it." "Do you?" Lisa's voice rose slightly. "Or are you just wasting my time?" People like you come in here acting like big spenders when you can't afford anything in this store. People like me? Malcolm asked quietly. You know exactly what I mean, Lisa hissed, looking around to ensure no other customers were nearby. This isn't some discount mall jewelry counter. These pieces are for serious collectors. Malcolm noticed her growing agitation. Not just rudeness, but fear. She was defensive about these specific pieces for a reason. I assure you, I'm very serious about jewelry, he replied, studying her reaction. I doubt that, Lisa scoffed. You probably can't tell the difference between a ruby and a piece of red glass. Why don't you try somewhere more your speed? Malcolm had heard enough. Her reaction confirmed his suspicions. Back at his office, Malcolm reviewed what he'd learned. Lisa's reaction to his interest in the ruby collection was telling. Not just prejudice, but panic. She was hiding something significant. Janet, he called to his assistant. Contact Jerry Thompson immediately. Jerry Thompson had served with Malcolm in the Marines Intelligence Division before joining his company security team. Within an hour, Jerry's broad shoulders filled the doorway to Malcolm's office. Colonel, Jerry greeted him, the military title a habit neither had abandoned. What's the situation? Malcolm outlined his encounter with Lisa and his suspicions. I need everything on her. Financial records, communications, associates. Someone that comfortable with theft doesn't work alone. Jerry nodded, his expression grim. On it, sir. I've been monitoring inventory discrepancies for months. The pattern suggests organized action. Lisa's living well above her pay grade too. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, a new Audi. Over the next 3 days, their investigation uncovered a sophisticated embezzlement scheme. Lisa wasn't just stealing. She was part of a network that included 2 board members and several investors. They had been systematically replacing high-value stones with near-identical lower-quality ones, selling the originals through underground channels. The scale is staggering, Jerry said, placing a thick folder on Malcolm's desk. We're talking millions, not thousands. And it goes all the way to the top. Gregory Phillips and Richard Westmore from the board are involved. Malcolm's jaw tightened. He'd invited both men into his company, trusted them with his vision. The betrayal stung, but he maintained composure that had carried him through firefights and combat zones. The evidence is conclusive, Malcolm observed, reviewing the documents. Bank transfers, unauthorized inventory access, communication records. What's the play, Colonel? Jerry asked. Malcolm considered his options with tactical precision. A direct confrontation would alert them, potentially destroying evidence. An internal investigation might be compromised. We need to catch them in the act, he decided. Set up a meeting with the investors. Let them think it's routine. I'll confront them personally. Jerry looked concerned. They don't know who you are. They've never met the founder. Exactly, Malcolm replied. That's our advantage. The boardroom's tension was palpable as 4 men in expensive suits waited. None had ever met the company's reclusive founder, but rumors of an urgent financial meeting had brought them running. Malcolm entered alone, dressed in an impeccable suit that now reflected his true status. He assessed each face. Gregory Phillips, thin and gray-haired. Richard Westmore, stocky and red-faced. And 2 key investors, David Hoffman and Michael Reynolds. Gentlemen, Malcolm began, his voice calm but authoritative. Thank you for coming. Who are you? Phillips demanded, clearly expecting someone else. Malcolm Carter, he replied simply. I founded this company. A stunned silence followed. Reynolds recovered first. You're Carter? But you're black. Malcolm finished for him, his expression unchanged. Yes, I've noticed that myself. The uncomfortable shifting in seats told Malcolm everything. These men had invested in his company, sat on his board, yet had made assumptions about who could run a luxury jewelry empire. Let's discuss the real reason you're here, Malcolm continued, pressing a button that locked the boardroom doors. The systematic theft of high-value stones from my company. What are you talking about? Westmore's face flushed deeper red. Malcolm opened a folder, sliding documents across the table with military precision. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Communications with black market dealers. Inventory discrepancies, all connected to the four of you and Lisa Haynes. This is ridiculous, Phillips sputtered. You have no proof. Malcolm played a recording, Lisa's voice explicitly mentioning Phillips' instructions for handling the switch gems. The blood drained from Phillips' face. 20 years in the Marines taught me patience, discipline, and how to gather intelligence, Malcolm said, his voice steady. I've been tracking this operation for months. Every transaction, every communication, every stone. Reynolds lunged to his feet. You don't know who you're dealing with. Malcolm stood, his posture shifting subtly into the commanding presence that had led Marines into combat. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. For thieves who made assumptions about who I was, what I know, and what I'm capable of. He pressed another button, and Jerry entered with 2 federal agents. You can't do this, Westmore growled. We have connections. People who will make this disappear. Malcolm's expression didn't change. So do I. The FBI values evidence, not connections. He nodded to the agents. These gentlemen have everything they need, including recorded confessions from your earlier statements. As the men were escorted out, Malcolm felt no satisfaction, only the weight of responsibility he carried throughout his military career. The mission was only partially complete. The arrests made headlines nationwide. Jewelry empire corruption exposed. The papers declared. Malcolm had provided authorities with flawless evidence, resulting in swift prosecutions of Lisa and the investors. But victory brought unexpected complications. Questions began circulating about the mysterious founder who had suddenly emerged from the shadows. Business rivals and journalists speculated about Malcolm's involvement. Had he known earlier? Why had he remained hidden? Was this a publicity stunt? 3 weeks after the arrests, Janet entered his office, her expression troubled. Sir, we have a problem. Several employees are speaking to the press, suggesting you might have been complicit. Complicit? Malcolm repeated, his voice calm despite his rising concern. They're saying you must have known earlier that no one runs a company this tight without noticing millions in theft. Some are even suggesting. She hesitated. Say it, Janet. That you orchestrated the takedown of your own board to consolidate power. Malcolm's jaw tightened. The accusation stung worse than any battlefield wound. He had built his entire life, military and civilian, on honor and integrity. There's more, Janet continued reluctantly. Lisa Haynes is claiming you targeted her because of racial prejudice, that you as a black man were harder on her than others to prove yourself. The irony wasn't lost on Malcolm. After facing discrimination himself, including in the military where he'd had to work twice as hard for recognition, he now stood accused of reverse discrimination. That evening, Malcolm stood at his office window, watching the city lights. 20 years in the Marines had taught him that sometimes the hardest battles came after the main firefight, when politics, perception, and paperwork replaced direct action. His phone buzzed with a message from Jerry. Media digging deeper. We need to change strategy. Defensive position isn't working. Malcolm made his decision. It was time to go on the offensive. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. Every major network and publication had sent representatives, eager to question the mysterious founder who had exposed corruption in his own company. At 9:55, Malcolm entered his office bathroom and stared at his reflection. He'd worn many uniforms in his life, from Marine battle dress to bespoke business suits. Today called for something different. At precisely 10 a.m., Malcolm Carter walked onto the podium, his steps measured and deliberate. A collective gasp swept through the room. Instead of expected business attire, he wore his Marine Corps dress blues, combat ribbons and medals gleaming on his chest. The Purple Heart and Bronze Star commanded immediate respect. Good morning, he began, his voice steady. I am Colonel Malcolm Carter, United States Marine Corps, retired. 20 years ago, I served this country in combat zones across the world. After retirement, I founded Carter Jewelry Authentication, bringing the same values of honor, courage, and commitment to the business world. Cameras flashed continuously as reporters scrambled to adjust their narrative. Last month, I personally uncovered a corruption scheme within my company. I investigated it with the same thoroughness I applied to military operations, gathered evidence, and ensured those responsible faced justice. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. Now, I find my integrity questioned by those who have never met me, who know nothing of my service or my principles. Malcolm gestured to his uniform. I wore this uniform with pride in defense of American values. I run my company with those same values. I will not apologize for demanding integrity, nor will I stand by while speculation and rumors undermine what I've built. The room fell silent as Malcolm methodically addressed each accusation with military precision, presenting documentation, witnesses, and timeline evidence that destroyed every allegation. As he concluded, the back doors opened. 12 Marines in uniform entered, men and women who had served under Malcolm's command, now successful in various civilian careers. Major Daniels, a tall black woman, stepped forward. Colonel Carter led us through the worst combat situations with uncompromising integrity. Any suggestion that he would tolerate corruption or discrimination is absurd to anyone who served with him. One by one, they testified to Malcolm's character. The media narrative shifted before their eyes, from mysterious businessman to decorated veteran, defending his honor. As the press conference ended, Malcolm felt a familiar weight of command. The responsibility not just for a mission success, but for the truth, for justice, and for the people who trusted him. The aftermath of the press conference transformed everything. Media coverage shifted dramatically, focusing on Malcolm's military service and the values he had brought to the business world. Former critics became supporters, impressed by his direct approach and unimpeachable evidence. 6 months later, Malcolm stood in the newly renovated downtown branch. Lisa and the corrupt investors had received substantial prison sentences. The company had emerged stronger, with transparency measures that became industry standards. Colonel Jerry approached, using the title that had once again become common knowledge. The new security systems are online. Nothing moves in this company without proper authentication now. Malcolm nodded, surveying the store. Not just security systems, Jerry. It's people. We've built a culture of integrity. That evening, Malcolm addressed the annual company meeting, looking out at faces both familiar and new. 20 years in the Marines taught me that a unit is only as strong as its values. When I founded this company, I brought those same values with me. Honor, courage, commitment. He paused, making eye contact with individuals throughout the room. The past year tested those values. We faced corruption, betrayal, and false accusations. But we prevailed because truth eventually finds a light. As the applause faded, Malcolm reflected on the journey. From being dismissed as just another black customer to standing vindicated before his company. The challenges he'd faced as a black man in the military had prepared him for the business world's prejudices. Both required the same response: excellence beyond question, integrity beyond reproach. "What's your next mission, sir?" Janet asked as they left the building. Malcolm smiled slightly. "Same as always, Janet. Forward march."